Okay, hello guys. My name is John Bianchi. I am a Airbnb host. I've got about 11 properties here in Chicago. Actually, 10 in Chicago, one in Scottsdale. I've been doing this for over 2 years. I manage Airbnbs full time. I manage them for landlords. I manage them for property management companies. I have them set up in a couple of different contracts, and I've been using data since the day I got started to be able to make sense of all this. And there's a lot of Airbnb data that's out there, and that Airbnb data I've used to make my business very profitable. Right? Do a lot of research, a lot of data research, and I'm trying to refer to myself as the Airbnb data guy because there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. And anyways, they can if they just use the data, they would be able to make a lot more money. So this video is going to be actually meant for mainly property management companies, just to give you guys a heads up. However, it's still going to make sense for landlords who have units that are very difficult units. So what I'm going to teach you here is I'm going to teach how to eliminate unrentable units without losing the property, and you can do this all within 1 week. Okay, so let me explain the objective. The objective is to bring in more money than an annual renter and eliminate turnover because and actually one other thing we're going to eliminate is we want to eliminate vacancies. Yeah, there you go, vacancies. Did I get that right, computer? All right, so what we also want to do is we want to eliminate vacancies, and those are going to be our three objectives. What a great way to start off the video. Anyways, I'm just human. So what we're doing here is how we're going to do this. We're going to do this through the use of Airbnb data, okay? Now, to give you an understanding, so anyone who doesn't understand these two different scenarios that are showing up right here, I'm going to walk you through them. There's for anyone who has an Airbnb management company or does Airbnb management at all, there's two different structures that they can approach a property manager or a landlord with to set up contracts for the units that these guys own, okay? The first one is going to be referred to as the rental arbitrage model. It's the more common model. It's one you've probably been approached about already. What happens here is the Airbnb host acts as a normal annual tenant and pays you rent. So for you, everything stays the exact same. They just use your property as a full-time Airbnb. They're taking on all of the risk. So the Airbnb host is taking on all of the risk. You're not. Everything's staying the same. They're going to take care of everything, and there's no extra work for you, right? So it sounds like a pretty good scenario. This only works in scenarios where the property is is what I like to refer to as a gold mine property. Okay, so these are properties that would make significantly more money as an Airbnb than they do as a short-term rental, or sorry, than they do as an annual rental. And just a little tip for any property manager or landlord who currently has this set up: if you are working, if you have somebody who has a contract that is doing the rental arbitrage on one of your properties, chances are they're making way more money than you are as an annual from the rent. Just so you know, because there's a lot. The only way to do it, or the only reason to do it, is if you're going to make more money, and chances are if they're willing to pay you rent on that, they're going to be making a good amount more money. Especially for anyone who's had a contract set up with a landlord for 2, 3, 4 years, that person's definitely making a lot of money off your property. Maybe something to look into. And I apologize to all your Airbnb hosts if I just screwed you over. Anyways, the next one is the co-host. Okay, so co-hosting is when it's the exact same thing as property management, except for you're not just trying to find annual tenants, you're running a full-time Airbnb, okay? So co-hosting is where the Airbnb host and the property management company or the landlord partner up together. So now you guys are getting in business together essentially, and however, what's happening here is the Airbnb host is going to manage 100% of the work. So they're doing absolutely everything. In this scenario, the landlord or the property manager are not going to be doing anything once again. The revenue is generally going to be split up 70-30, with the majority of that going to the property manager or the landlord. Okay, so 70% of the revenue is going to go to the landlord, 30% is going to go to the Airbnb host for managing the property. The reason that this number is so high or so high is because there's a lot of work that goes into running an Airbnb, significantly more than goes into running a property management, where property management is typically around 10%. Okay, so that's why, and even at these numbers, it still works. Okay. Now, the property manager will make more money than if they were to rent out the home annually. That's the objective. That doesn't always happen. That actually not rarely happens, but there's a lot of scenarios where this hasn't happened, okay? And I believe this is solely because they just haven't used the right data to be able to know what they're getting themselves into. So actually right here, so why is the data so important? The data proves to the landlord that they will make more money before the contract is signed. So essentially, the data is so important because it'll tell the landlord, like, you're going to make more money and this is why. Not, hey, your home will make more money as an Airbnb because Airbnbs make more money and I know how to run an Airbnb. That's the typical pitch. But what I like to do is say, hey, here's the data, here's the numbers. Let me prove to you that this will makes more money as a full-time Airbnb, makes you more money, makes me more money, and we'll know that before we actually sign the contract and anyone spends any money or time. Okay, so that's what I like to do because running the Airbnb is it's not rocket science, guys. Anyways, so for this entire scenario, for all of you property management people and owners with unrentable units, what we're going to actually be talking about today is the co-host model and not the rental arbitrage model. If you wanted the rental arbitrage model, then you'd need a better property because it just won't work. The unrentable units generally will just not work as a rental arbitrage. However, they will work as a co-host. Okay, and so that's what I'm going to be explaining why this makes sense when you understand the data and why you can set this up and how this is going to get you your unrentable unit making you more money in under a week. Okay, not necessarily more money in under a week, but it's going to be set up as a property in under a week and it's no longer going to be a losing property. Okay, first thing that we're going to do here is these are the steps. Okay, there's like 5 steps here, and I'm going to walk you through each one of them. I apologize for bouncing back and forth. The first thing that we want to do is you're going to send me your vacant unit information. Okay, so if you're a large property management company, you're going to send me a whack load of properties. If you have just a handful, you'll send me some of those. If you just have one that's just not doing very well, then you're going to send me that one. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that information and I'm going to build out something like this. Okay, so just so you guys understand, these are actual properties that I've received from a property management company. I've deleted all of the information about that property management company, and as you can see here, A and C, right here, this hidden one is the addresses, so I've hidden all of that as well, okay? And what I do is I take this and I organize it and I use the data that I have to figure out which ones will be the most profitable and which ones won't. However, before I start explaining all this, I want to show you the data so you can understand that this data is credible and is very good data after I sort it. So this is the company that I get from, AirDNA. This is one of their products that I own. They got a few different levels of products, and they are the most reputable Airbnb data company that's out there. They record and track every single Airbnb property that's running across the entire world, and they put it into nice little formats like this where you can read. I get it in a different way completely, and this is what you're looking at here. So this data here is once again, so this is the sheet that I have. Every single row is an Airbnb. Okay, so each one of these rows that you see here is an Airbnb that's been up and running in Chicago over the past certain period of time. And when I originally got this sheet, it had about 30,000, I believe it was 38,000 different rows, which means there are 38,000 different Airbnbs. And then what I did was I sorted it and got rid of all of the stuff that wasn't useful. And I did that because based off of each one of these columns. So these columns here is a different data point. Okay, so every single column you see is a different data point, and there's 56 different data points all the way across, right? Including the Airbnb listing itself, the URL, so I can actually go and look at it online, right? And I take this, and all these little things are important to me, and I'm able to figure out why and use all that. And then what I do with this is I then sort it into the neighborhood. So I organize it because I need to know what I want to figure out is the averages for certain areas. And so now you can see I'm looking at Chicago here, and I got all the different neighborhoods on this side, and then up here I've got all the different unit sizes. Okay, so you can see 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You get the idea. It continues all the way down. Okay, and every single place that connects, right? So right here, 2-bedroom, 2-bath on this row. So it's in near north side. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath will make me 77,000, right? And so that's the average, and if I look over here, it's the actual details. So this tab here is all of the homes in the near north side that are 2-bedroom, 2-bath that I considered to be credible enough to track and record. And I'm not going to explain how I did that, but there's about 40 of them, and I have all the different data points, right? And one thing I want to point out while I'm here is this is the annual revenue in USD for these properties. So each one is a different Airbnb, like I was mentioning before, and you can see that these numbers vary quite a bit. Some are high, some are not necessarily low, but they're not crazy high. And what I get on the other end is an average, right? And I can use that average, and I use that average for sheets like this, okay? So I use the average for what I call the first level of data review, okay? And the first level is when you just kind of figure out the general, like, does this generally have a chance, right? Does this property have any chance? Does it have no chance? Without even viewing the property, just by based off of where it is, what and how many bedrooms and bathrooms that it has, I'm able to get a general idea, okay? Now, when I originally got sent this data, it came in this tab here, and in this tab is every single vacant unit that this property management company has. And I took it and I sorted it into, as you can see down here, each neighborhood individually so I could split them up. And then I took it and I put it into this sheet here where I just took all the units that were vacant that had any potential based off of the short-term rental revenue, so the annual revenue. And then what I did was I organized it based off of how profitable they would be, okay? So let me walk you through this really quick. Right here, we're in South Loop. You don't get to see the address, but this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the short-term rental annual revenue for it is going to be about $72,000 a year. The short-term rental expenses, okay, so this is going to be cleaning fees, utilities, maintenance, internet, stuff like that, is roughly going to come out to about 15,000, right? 15,000. You can see I pulled that number from up here. You can see how this grows as the bedroom count grows, right? Now the annual rent that this person's asking for is 29,000, so about 30,000. It's $2,475 times 12. And what this is saying here is that the profit over expenses is going to be 20,000. Now let me make something abundantly clear. When I say profit over expenses, this number here, the annual rent, we're not paying rent. However, I put this in here as an expense because to me, you need to make a minimum of this, right? I need to make you a minimum of the rent that you would have received from an annual tenant and some, okay? So in this scenario, you would be receiving this and this, okay? This already minuses out the management fee. The management fee is showing as 10% here, but it's only 10% of a certain amount, so it's different. I'll explain that later in another video. So what I need you to understand is that in this scenario, because of where this home is located or this unit is located, it can make a good amount of money. 72,000 is a good amount of money. The expenses on it are very low because it's the rent is lower in this part of town, but it's still good for Airbnb. And so this home has the potential to earn $20,000 over the annual rent that they would have received, right? So that's a very good scenario. This is what I like to refer to as a gold mine property. We're not actually talking about gold mine properties though. We're talking about unrentable units, right? Units that are difficult to rent, difficult to keep rented, okay? But I'm just showing you that in this scenario. I'll make another video about gold mine properties on another day. But what I want to look at here is actually this property right here, okay? So we're in Lakeview. We got a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath. I wish I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. What an unrentable or difficult to rent unit is, you know already. You probably have some. That's why you're watching the video. You're still watching the video. But as an example, what this one is here, this is one that we do have. I'm showing you a real example, okay? It's got 4 bedrooms and it's got 1.5 bath, which means it's got 1 shower, right? Now the three of the bedrooms are on the top floor, and the bathroom with the shower is on the floor below, right? Which means that you got to find, first off, you got to find 4 people that want to live together, right? And it's not near a school, so you can't find 4 students. So you got to find 4 random people that are willing to live together. Then you got to find these 4 people where 3 of them are okay with running up and down the stairs every single day to shower, right? Now, maybe that's not that big of a deal to some of you guys, but to other people, they don't want that. They don't want that inconvenience. That's just, it's just how it is, right? So you got to find people that want to do that, and then on top of that, the rooms are really poorly sized. Some are significantly larger than the others, things like that. So this landlord, this property manager, owns this unit, and the issue is that he has a really difficult time getting anybody to rent it, right? So it almost always sits vacant. So whenever somebody leaves, there's always probably about a month or 2 or 3, depending on the time of the year, where this property actually just sits empty, right? And they're just showing it and showing it and showing it and trying to get somebody in there, but nobody's taking it. And then when they finally do get it rented, right? When they finally get it rented, the people who stay there only stay there for 1 year. They never re-sign because they just don't want to, right? Because they can find something better within that time period, and they do, right? So that's why this is such a difficult unit. And the annual rent that they want to get from it is $28,000, but they really don't get this every single year, and they always have to deal with the empty unit. They have to deal, with the unit sitting vacant for a couple of months at a minimum. Plus, they got to pay somebody, 1 month's rent just to find somebody to get in there, or they have to do all of the work themselves, which is a lot of time, which can cost even more. Plus, during that turnover, they gotta clean the unit, update the unit. They have to add new things in there just to make it desirable to get somebody in there again, right? So they're losing. They're not making the full amount of rent. And their expenses are a good amount every single time there's a turnover, right? And this is showing that they have the potential to make $55,000 as a short-term rental, right? So just so you guys understand, I just realized this as I'm speaking. This said $65,000 when I did this video last time. This is the second time going through the video because the first time was too confusing, and so I'm doing it again. So it did say $65,000. That's important to note because this sheet here is simply a quick overview, right? So it's accurate enough to say that there's opportunity in some places and no opportunity in others, but what the next step is to get a little bit more in depth with this number and do very direct comparables. And so this did originally say 65,000, and there was the potential of doing an additional 10,000 over the 28,000, right? So that's what this originally said, and I'll explain why that's important in the next step. Okay, so once again, before I'm going to wrap up on this sheet, these are all the different locations. These are all the different potentials, and they're organized based off of which one can be the most profitable. And just so you guys know, actually, it's not even in here. We have one other unit with this company as well, and it didn't even make this sheet because I didn't think that was something that they would want to do, or that area. And anyways, it was a very unrentable unit, and it turned out to be also better as an Airbnb. So there you go. There you have that's that information there. This is what all of these look like. Any one of these homes have the potential to do more. So that's what we put together for our landlords. Okay. Now the next thing I want to get to. So the next step. Okay. And the next step, here we go. I apologize if this is getting long and boring. I do want to mention one little pro tip here. Okay, so some units may make slightly more as an Airbnb. However, the unit is not difficult to keep rented, so it's not worth the extra work and money. Okay, so what I mean by that, if I jump back real quick, wrong page. So if I jump over here, you'll see like these guys here. See these ones here that are all kind of in the 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. If these ones aren't difficult to rent or keep rented, or they don't really sit vacant too long and people tend to sign for like 2-3 years at a time, then it doesn't make sense to make an additional $383 than you would have received as the annual rent, because it's going to be more work, right? So it's got to be worth it. So sometimes it'll make more money, but it just doesn't make sense to do. Even in this scenario, the reason that we didn't do this one or this one was just simply because of the regulation rules. And so, however, they make great Airbnbs. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. If you were doing the rental arbitrage model, and you have somebody paying you rent, right? I'm just going to throw this in here. I apologize. I'm not a part of what I'm trying to do. If you have somebody paying you rent, so if you have somebody who's paying you rent, they're actually making $20,000 over what they're paying you, right? So they're making a good amount of money on this property right here. But if you took it on as an Airbnb, you would make an additional, probably in this scenario, about $15,000, $17,000 more than the annual rent. So just as a heads up, you might want to check in on these and maybe switch up those contracts to some property management ones, okay? Anyways, let me come back. Let's go down. So the next thing to do is step 4 is the property evaluation report, okay? Property evaluation report is what I like to refer to as step 2 when it comes to data. This is the more in-depth review. You have to be able to, I have to see the property first before actually knowing how it's going to do. So in step 3, I didn't say this, but in step 3, we review this sheet together and we look at everything together, and you tell me which ones you want me to go view, right, in person, because I need to be able to see a little bit more accurate of a property, because like I said, I'm using averages there. And this is my data. Once again, this is my data, and this is showing you that the average, can be for this area was 77,000, right? 77,000 was the average, but as you can see, there, it varies quite a bit, right? So I need to figure out if this is a property that's going to do 94,000, or if it's a property that's going to do 66,000. Now, I'm not talking about this area. I'm talking about, for this scenario, I was talking about Lakeview, a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath. But I'm just telling you that in the data, it varies, and so I need to figure out which level of unit this is, right? Is it the top, bottom, middle? What is it? And so what I do is I build this, a property evaluation report. A property evaluation report walks through, so the first 3 lines here just give my general take on the property, just like notes, right? Then I get into comparable properties, so I use my data and I find the properties that are directly comparable to this one. Then I add notes into why it's comparable, because Airbnb comparables are different than real estate investor comparables, and so I need to make sure that people understand why they're comparable, what features make them comparable. To be honest, this here, there's not a lot written here, and that's just because I know this landlord is a very quick type of person who literally just wants facts, right, really quick. So anyways, that's what I do there. So I put all these comparables, I put these comparables together in the property evaluation based off exactly which ones in the averages best relate to that home. And then what I come up with is a property projection. Okay, so I projected this property to do 55,000. Now if you remember, because I made a big deal about it, was up here, this one we said could do 65,000 when we originally looked at it, which was going to make him an additional $10,000, and now I'm saying it's going to do $10,000 less, which means it's going to make $10,000 less, right? But this is a more accurate scenario, and I need to, you got to be, the whole reason we do this is to figure out how accurate it really is, right? Now what this next step here is to break all of the numbers down. Okay, so I want to make sure that the numbers are all broken down for the landlord so that they're not getting confused as to what they're walking away with. Are they walking away with 55,000? No, there's a lot of expenses that come into running an Airbnb, and we break it down for them so that they understand, so you understand exactly what you need to know. Okay, now the first thing you need to understand is that revenue is split up into 2 different categories in Airbnb. It's split up into nightly rate and it's split up into cleaning fee. Now the reason this is important to split up is because as my property management company only takes money from a percentage of the nightly rate and not the total revenue. We do have a cleaning company that gets paid out from the cleaning fee, right? It's essentially the total. But it's important to know that we only take a percentage of the nightly rate. Okay, so the total revenue comes up to 55,000. Now, the next step here is the expenses, right? The first thing I put in is the rent/mortgage. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I count this as an expense because to me, we need to make you more than this, right? That's the objective, more than $28,000 a year, because $28,000 a year is how much you typically would make if it was rented as a full-time annual tenant. If it was always rented, but in this scenario, it's a shitty unit, so we're trying to make it more than that, right? But at a minimum, I got to make you more than this. So just keep in mind, you're still making this amount. Okay, I'm going to highlight this yellow. This is still coming to you. It's not an expense that goes anywhere. To me, it's an expense that goes to you. Okay, and hope that's not too confusing. I think it's pretty simple. So the next expense that we have here is the cleaners. Now, as an Airbnb, you got to clean the property like 8 times a month, 8 times a month, right? So it's going to cost you a good amount of money because it's a 4-bedroom, and it's going to cost about $10,000. I left the gas out here because the landlord was paying for the gas in the first place, so there's no difference for him on this scenario. I don't know, maybe I should have put in there, but regardless, I left it out and he was okay with that. So the next thing is the electric. He's now taking on the electric bill, not the annual tenant. He's going to need internet for the property, another bill he's taking on, and there's going to be some general maintenance, so I always add in about $100 a month on general maintenance. You always want to do that, right? Now the next thing is the management fee. So as you can see, I said earlier that it was typically 70-30, but he talked us down to 25. So we're at 25%. We're taking 25% of, so here you can see the formula in this one here, so 75% of C25, C25 being the nightly rate, okay? So we're only taking management fee out of here, right? And what ends up happening is that his total expenses ends up being $53,020. So this is saying that his additional annual profit over his rent is $1,980. So he makes an additional $2,000 over the rent. Okay. Now, why this is important, and maybe it doesn't seem that crazy because only $2,000 more, right? I was saying like earlier, if it's only a little bit, maybe it's not worth it. But in this scenario, it is worth it because he can. It's hard to get the unit rented, so he's rarely ever getting this full amount year over year, and he doesn't have to deal with turnover anymore, right? So that's one of the biggest things that we wanted to do was eliminate turnover. Right? When it's something is set up as a full-time Airbnb that makes money, you're not putting it back to an annual tenant anytime soon. You're keeping it as an Airbnb because it makes money. I always like to explain this like a Starbucks. If a Starbucks finds a really good corner, really good location to be, they're not leaving. They're going to stay there as long as that location continues to bring them the money that they want. And that's how Airbnb works. Your location, your unit is now a business that makes money, and as long as it's making more money than you would as an annual renter, you're going to continue to keep it as a Airbnb. And so in this scenario, we eliminate turnover. No longer turnover expenses, no longer trying to get somebody in there. And we're eliminating vacancies because it's going to be set up as an Airbnb for as long as it makes money, okay? So the true new total profit is going to be 30,000, okay? 30,180. That's this additional amount plus the rent. So the landlord's now walking away with a total of $30,180, right? On an ongoing basis. Now his profit before, just add this in here to quickly show you. Profit before was 28,000. Now he's making 30,000. The difference being is that this one wasn't always 28,000, and this one will be as long as we can hit the numbers 30,000, right? So this is an actual scenario. This is one that we actually did with the landlord and broke it down for him and showed him exactly how it's going to work out and what happened and how it's when it's all put together. Okay. Now the next step is fairly simple. The next step is you let me know which properties are approved. So I send you all that information and you let me know which ones you say, okay, let's go for it, right? We generally are in person when we do this. And then you cut a check for the furniture. What? You pay for the furniture? Why? What? You don't want to put more money? It's a bad property, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I apologize. That's so as the owner of the property, it's your furniture, okay? You want to own the furniture. It's going to cost you some money to put it up. However, it's going to make you more money on an ongoing basis, okay? And my team sources the furniture for you because we know what we're doing and we can keep it in a budget. We can make it make sense for you. So yes, you're going to put up the money for the furniture, but we're going to do all the work to put it together. So you're not doing any additional work, and we're going to keep it in a certain budget range that it still makes sense for you to set it up, regardless of the fact that you're going to have to put up money up front, okay? And like I said, we set up the unit, and we can do this all in under 1 week. So in 1 week, we can have it all set up as an Airbnb because we know what we're doing, and we've done it quite a few times before, and we keep it in a budget. And yes, you pay for the furniture, and that furniture is yours. And if it doesn't work out as an Airbnb after the entire year, we'll buy the furniture from you. How's that? So we can throw it into another unit, okay? And we'll go from there. So to summarize, that is how you can eliminate unrentable units. You eliminate them by understanding that annual tenants are not the only option. There are other options. That other option is Airbnb, okay, from a company like mine. And so we're going to eliminate them without losing the property. So you still have the property, still yours. We can do this in 1 week. All right, 1 week we can have this set up. Just depends on how fast you move, if you can keep up with us. All right, and we eliminate turnover, we make more money, we eliminate vacancies, and data is everything, guys. Data is everything. And we're going to set it up as a co-hosting contract where we do a split, and we're going to make sure that before we sign that contract, you understand where you're getting yourself into. This is the data that we use to make sense of everything. It's very thorough, it's in depth. We eliminate everything that we don't want from there. This is the company, AirDNA, that we get that data from. I'm just going to show you as an example of how far I've come with the data that this was my data 2 years ago of how I would track different areas and what it looked like. This was all manually inputted and trying to figure things out on an ongoing basis this way. And you can see I got all these different little tabs down here and all the averages and stuff over this way. Okay, now we have the more in-depth, thorough data. So yes, I do know what I'm doing. Then we take your vacancy list, we figure out an overview of how well they could do based off of the different expenses, and then from there we view the properties. I put together a property evaluation to figure out exactly the exact comparables, break down the numbers exactly, and figure out exactly how much more money you're going to make so that everything is completely understood on both of our sides. And then the last thing is we buy the furniture and set it up in 1 week. Okay, this is how it works. I hope this was helpful. I hope you understand. I hope you realize that there are other options. That annual tenants is not the only thing that there is. And there's my information's below. You can check us out. You can reach out to me. You can email me. We can talk. We can have a conversation. We can go more in depth. You can send me your properties. I can put we can do all this stuff. Okay. So, anyways, hope this is helpful. Hope you realize that there is other options. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. And once again, my name is John Bianchi, signing off.